This week on Hometown Ghost Stories, Kennebunk and Kennebunkport might look like your typical charming coastal towns, but they've got more than their fair share of ghosts. The Isidor wrecked offshore in 1842, and some say the ship is still patrolling the shores of Maine. The Wedding Cake House doesn't just have a gothic and ominous look to it. It's got its own fair share of haunts. And if you're staying at Kennebunk Inn, don't be surprised if you hear voices when no one's around.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ethan George Grant had never cared much for ghost stories. He'd grown up in Kennebunkport and had spent his entire 38 years listening to locals spin tales about the haunted past of his hometown. The Isidor was one of the big ones. The doomed ship that went down in a storm just off the coast in 1842. Supposedly, the crew had premonitions of their own deaths before they set sail. Ethan had always rolled his eyes at that part, but then he started dreaming about the ship. The first time, he chalked it up to one too many drinks at Federal Jack's. He was standing on the deck of the Isidor, rain pouring in his face, and the wind hitting the back of his neck. The ocean rocking the boat violently beneath him as the crew fought to keep it under control. Someone grabbed his arm, their fingers ice cold, and whispered, "Turn back before it's too late." Then the ship was hit by a huge wave, and he was falling. He woke up gasping. His sheets were soaked with sweat, and his heart was thumping. Just a nightmare. But then the next night, it happened again. And again. Each time the details grew sharper. The smell of salt and rotted wood. The creak of the mast straining against the wind. The fear in the crew's hollow eyes. Every night he stood on that ship, and every night he drowned with it. After a week, Ethan could barely function. His co-workers at the marina noticed his exhaustion, the dark circles under his eyes. He made the typical excuses, bad sleep, stress, but he knew something was wrong, and so did they. One evening, desperate for answers, he found himself looking for any information at all that he could find on the Isidor. Again, he'd heard the stories growing up, but now they felt personal. He read again about the crew's premonitions, the failed attempts to get the captain to not set sail, and the disastrous result. Then he found something that made all the color in his face drain. Several of the crew members dreamt of 7 coffins before the ship had set sail. They had told the others. They begged the captain not to go, but he ignored them. Days later, after the wreck, 7 bodies had washed ashore. Ethan swallowed hard, because every night in his dreams there was also coffins. But instead of 7, he always dreamed of 8. That night, Ethan went to the beach where the Isidor had set sail from. The air was cold, the waves restless. He stood at the edge of the shore, staring out at the dark water. Then he heard a whisper, barely audible beneath the crashing waves. "Turn back before it's too late." His chest tightened. He turned, expecting someone to be behind him, but the beach was empty. Just sand, dark sky, and the endless stretch of ocean. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something. The movement of something just offshore. A ship, barely visible through the mist, its sails tattered, drifting silently in the waves. Ethan stepped forward, his breath caught in his throat, and out of nowhere, the ship was just gone. The tide rushed up suddenly, soaking his shoes. His body felt ice cold as he headed back home. The crazy thing was, Ethan never dreamed of the Isidor again. Sometimes, though, Ethan would still walk that stretch of the beach, and he'd swear he saw something in the sand on occasion. 7 shallow depressions, side by side, as if something had been resting there. And every once in a great while, an 8th. That one looked fresh. I'm Rob Coakley, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Kennebunk and Kennebunkport, Maine. Kennebunk and Kennebunkport are 2 historical coastal towns in southern Maine that have roots dating back to the early 1600s. Originally inhabited by a number of Native American tribes, the area would see its first European settlements in the 1620s as part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. By the 18th and 19th centuries, shipbuilding and maritime trade became the backbone of the local economy, with the Kennebunk River serving as a hub for constructing grand wooden ships that sailed across the world. As the shipping industry declined, the towns transformed into popular summer destinations that attract wealthy visitors with their beautiful coastline and historic charm. Throughout their history, Kennebunk and Kennebunkport have seen their share of turmoil, from colonial conflicts and Revolutionary War skirmishes to devastating shipwrecks along the rugged shores. Many of the grand homes, inns, and cemeteries that still stand today date back to the 18th and 19th centuries, preserving the stories and perhaps the spirits of those who walked the streets long ago.
According to local legend, back in the 1800s, a shipbuilder named George W. Bourne built a home for his new bride. The house is now known as the Wedding Cake House. Before they could properly marry, duty called. George had to go to sea. When he finally came home, racked with guilt for leaving her behind, he did what any self-respecting 19th century romantic would do. He built her a dream cathedral. Ornate trim, turrets, spires, the kind of over-the-top tribute that says, "Sorry I left, here's an architectural love letter." But then there's the darker version, the one where his bride never made it to the wedding, dying before they could say "I do." Heartbroken, Bourne transformed the house into a grand, grief-stricken monument to the wedding that never was. Which is true? Maybe neither. Either way, people say she never really left. If you ask around, you'll hear stories of flickering lights, shadow figures in the windows, cold spots, and more. Some say they've seen a woman, silent, waiting, gazing from the upstairs windows. Others claim the house hums with whispers at night, footsteps in empty rooms, the energy of something unfinished. Is it real? Power of suggestion? Maybe just the wind coming off the Maine coast? Who knows? But standing in front of that house, staring up at those eerie, intricate details, you might just feel it too. That sense of something unresolved, lingering in the air like salt and sorrow. In reality, the house started as a simple federal-style home in 1825. Bourne himself designed and added all the frilly details in 1852 after being inspired by Gothic cathedrals in Europe. He might not have been mourning a dead bride, he could have just been a guy with a thing for over-the-top woodwork. But let's be honest, the legend is way more fun. Haunted or not, the Wedding Cake House remains the most photographed home in Maine, and for good reason. It's weird, it's wonderful, and it's got a story that'll stick with you long after you've driven past. Whether it's love, loss, or just damn good craftsmanship, this house has a way of haunting you, one way or another.
The Kennebunk Inn, located in Kennebunk, Maine, was built in 1799 as a private residence. Over the years, it has changed ownership multiple times and has served various purposes, eventually becoming a hotel known for its historical significance and reports of paranormal activity. Phineas Cole originally bought the home in 1799. Benjamin Smith owned it until 1875, when Dr. Orrin Ross purchased the property. In In 1880, Dr. Ross gave the home to his son, Dr. Frank Ross, who lived there until his death in 1926. Afterward, Mr. and Mrs. George Baitler bought the property. In 1928, the Baitlers converted the house into a hotel named The Tavern. In 1940, Walter Day bought the place and was inspired to expand the inn by adding rooms to offer 16 rooms and renamed it a grander name, the Kennebunk Inn. It was a family-run inn, which explains how it kept going for 40 years. This inn became a much-loved establishment by all and sailed through World War II, the 1950s, the 60s, and all the way up to the 1980s. The number and intensity of paranormal interactions spiked with the living right after the 1980 major renovation efforts. It has since remained a functioning hotel, attracting visitors interested in its history and reported paranormal occurrences. One of the most well-known figures associated with the Kennebunk Inn is a man named Silas Perkins, a former night watchman and clerk at the hotel during the late 1960s. Born on August 12, 1880 to a ship captain named Foytus Perkins, he also grew up to be a poet and was well known in the community. He lived into his 80s but suffered a heart attack across the street from the inn. He was carried across the street to the Kennebunk Inn, where he passed away in room 17. His literary legacy gained national attention when one of his poems, The Common Road, was broadcast nationally from President Franklin D. Roosevelt's funeral train in 1945. Since his death, guests and employees have reported unusual occurrences, including objects moving on their own and glasses falling from shelves. Some believe these incidents are linked to Perkins' spirit. Room 17, where he passed away, is considered the most haunted room in the hotel. Reports include unexplained cold drafts, rattling doorknobs, and doors opening by themselves. One housekeeper even claimed to have unplugged the television only to see it turn on again moments later. It's unknown who haunts the bar. Some believe it to be Silas, but many believe that the mischievous and sometimes violent hauntings at the tavern don't align with Silas's personality. Late one evening, a hand-carved German mug flew off the shelf behind the bar and hit the bartender on the side of his head, causing a lump. In one incident, a waiter was carrying a tray of wine glasses when one of the wine glasses rose off the tray and crashed to the floor, like someone had deliberately thrown it. Some customers witnessed the incident. The waiter took the rest of the day off. Goblets located behind the bar have been known to move and actually fly across the room by themselves. In addition to Silas Perkins, some believe the inn is also haunted by the spirit of a young girl named Emily. Described as a playful presence, she is said to run up and down the hallways, knock on guests' doors, and move objects such as silverware and chairs. One guest who stayed the night at the inn wanted to get up early in the morning to use the bathroom. However, he sat up in his bed and put his feet on the floor when suddenly a swirling cold spot engulfed his legs and he quickly jumped back into bed. It's believed that this unseen presence of little Emily gave him a hug. Perhaps he reminded her of somebody she once loved in life. In 2012, psychic Vicki Monroe identified a spirit named Sarah Emily, who she claims stands on the main stairwell to greet visitors. Some accounts suggest that Emily interacts with people who resemble her family members and enjoys playing with objects in the hotel. Her presence, along with that of Perkins, adds to the Kennebunk Inn's reputation for paranormal activity. The Kennebunk Inn remains a historic landmark in Maine. Whether due to its past residents or natural explanations, reports of unexplained activity continue to be part of its reputation.
To tell the tale of the wreck of the Isidor, the worst shipwreck in Maine's history at the time, we must first travel back further and find out about the fate of the Horus. As stated earlier, many ships were built in the marinas of Kennebunkport, and one of those was a bark that was named the Horus. Leander Foss was the captain of the ship during its maiden voyage, which was quickly met with a mutiny from 4 crew members. Captain Foss was able to wrestle a loaded pistol away from one of the mutineers and sequester them, returning to Kennebunkport and then turning the men into the authorities. During this return on May 5, 1838, a severe storm would part the cables of the ship, sending it crashing against ledges near Oak's Neck for 15 minutes. The Horus would take on water before being grounded and declared a total loss by insurance companies. Captain Foss was distraught and humiliated as he was at home in bed during the time of the storm and the wreck. He frequently told people throughout town that he wished he went down with the ship. And many sailors and locals believed that the captain himself was cursed. Foss would get a chance to redeem himself, though, as he would become captain of the Isidor. The Isidor was also a bark, and the salvaged spars and rigging from the Horus were used to build the ship. In November of 1842, the crew of the Isidor was preparing for its maiden voyage when the ship's carpenter, Thomas King, had a dream. In his dream, he saw the ship caught in a terrible storm, the Isidor being overtaken by wave after wave before the crew perished in the ocean. At the end of the dream, he saw 7 coffins and 7 bodies from the crew washed up on the shoreline. Thomas was so terrified by the dream that the next day he went to Captain Foss and begged him not to let the ship set sail. Foss would hear none of it and demanded that King be there or he would face extreme consequences. Thomas King, still shaken, would head to a local church and tell a priest about the dream as well. After this visit, Thomas would hide in town to make sure that he never set foot on the Isidor. But Thomas wasn't the only crew member that was having terrible dreams of the ship. Soon after, another sailor by the name of Paul Grant told Captain Foss that he also had dreamed about 7 coffins. Word started to get around the crew, and John Crowder told his seamates that dogs had been howling outside his house for 3 straight days. Many considered this also a bad omen. On November 30th, 1842, the Isidor would set sail, heading to New Orleans, then France, despite what appeared to be bad weather. Just before setting off, William Harding, another of the crew, was overheard saying, quote, "I wish he was 1,000 miles at sea, and I on shore," end quote. Foss was determined to show that he was a great captain, and that pride would cost him and his crew dearly. Almost immediately after setting sail, only miles away, the ship would encounter a snow and windstorm so severe that it would cause the ship to take on massive damage. Miles out, the ship would quickly sink near the Cape Nedic lighthouse, better known as the Nubble Light. Shortly after the wreck amongst the debris, people would begin searching for the 15-man crew. 7 of those bodies washed up on shore. 7 bodies, 7 coffins. The rest of the men would never be recovered. Almost as soon as the ship wrecked, people began seeing a phantom ship patrolling the shores of Maine. Fishermen on shore and in boats have seen it sailing in the horizon. Some have even been brave enough to approach the cursed ship, but as they get close, the ship is known to simply disappear out of sight. Even now, on stormy nights, a ghostly ship is said to patrol the waters off the coast of Maine. Its doomed voyage replaying with every passing wave. Those who encountered the phantom ship are left with the chilling feeling that some journeys, once begun, are never truly meant to end.
What's going on, folks? Welcome into Hometown Ghost Stories, episode number 154, covering Kennebunk and Kennebunkport, Maine. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
This is our first time, I believe, combining 2 towns into one episode, but it just felt right.
It's not, actually. The last time we combined 2 towns into one episode was the last time we covered Maine.
Was it really?
Yeah. Oh, no, wait, that was 2. Yeah, right, because it was Maine, New Hampshire. It was like a Maine, New Hampshire hybrid.
Well, that was the Isle of Shoals, right? So, like, that I feel like that doesn't count. I thought you were going to go back to the Christmas episode.
That would be the other one, right?
Episode 13, which we don't talk about the Christmas episode.
No,
it doesn't exist. Don't listen to it. Nobody has.
You can't even mention the Christmas episode. You just torpedoed this episode too. That's okay. We're also joined by a man they say is tan, well rested, and ready, and that's Dave.
That's what they call me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they say.
Do they?
I don't know if that one's going to stick, but we'll put it on a shirt. Why not?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
See what happens. We'll see if it sells. Anyways, covering Maine for the second time, right? We kind of just discussed this. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. What's up to everyone hanging out in live chat? Brenda C came in with 50 gifted Hometown Ghost Stories memberships before the stream even started. Tess came through, and that was a resub day for Tess. Papa Squatch, Whisper, Jeannie, Ricardo, welcome back. The Jeannie gifted 20. Chicago gifted 10, and Lockwood gifted 10. So thank you so much for
Demon
all
King.
your... Demon King. Did I miss Demon King? Oh my God. That must have just came in. $99.99 from the one and only legendary Demon King. Wow. What a legend.
Absolute legend. Welcome back, Demon King.
Hell yeah.
Good to see you.
So
Glad you're still here, buddy.
unbelievably generous. Wow.
Yes.
Demon King.
And shout out to our RIP of the week, Jennifer A, who is very active on our Facebook page. So shout out to her.
Yeah. RIP of the
Absolutely.
week action there.
Yes.
Sheesh. Demon King's got me flabbergasted there. $99.99 in super chat. That is wild. Thank you so much. So a lot of haunted locations in this area. You guys did go there. So this is actually an investigation episode. So we didn't really discuss what we caught during the investigation in that. I can't really weigh in on that because I was not there, but I was kind of there. You know, I joined in for the live stream, but just from home base.
That's
but
right.
I was quite ill. I was disappointed. I did want to go up there. We actually went up there for Rob's 58th birthday.
That's right.
Yeah.
My
Yep.
75th birthday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His final one.
Yes, my final one.
Mhm.
Do we want to start with the Kennebunk Inn then? Do we just want to start with
Yeah,
that?
let's start with that. Well, first, let's thank Elizabeth Young, who just threw $4.99 in super chat as well. Thank you so much. So, still waiting on Rob to get his cowboy hat. Well,
I will.
he's $4.99 closer.
We're getting there. So I will forever be haunted by the Kennebunk Inn because what you may not know, Jesse, is we checked into this place and then at 8 or 7 o'clock, I can't remember, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, we realized that there was a skating rink right outside the window that they started blasting music, and you just heard ice skating from 7 o'clock in the morning on. So that was
the music
great.
for me. The music would be an issue, but I find the sound of ice skating quite soothing. Like
No, you
hockey
don't.
games, when you hear the ice skating, love it.
Not this.
No, this
Not
is
that.
squealing children and thunderous music on a PA system, so it doesn't even like sound good.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
It was terrible. You couldn't hear the ice skate sounds. You could just hear the horrible sounds of children playing.
It was
Stuff
terrible.
of nightmares, folks.
It was absolutely terrible. They were just smashing into the boards too. I was like, what is happening? What is going on? Is it a hockey game?
The
No.
closer you get to to Canada, the closer people are better at, the more and more people are better at hockey. So
Yeah.
that's understandable. They got to start checking early and,
Yeah. Yeah. So it started with that. That was great. The hotel is the motel is super nice. It was very friendly staff. The room was great. I enjoyed the room. Just didn't enjoy the hockey and the skating.
Yeah, the room was great. It was like 2 bedrooms divided by a living room and a hallway. It was a nice setup. It was not your typical hotel room.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly large for the size of the building, right? You look at it, it just looks like a big house. Not a huge house, just like a big house. And so I was expecting much smaller rooms. So it was actually pretty nice.
Yeah. And we weren't planning on getting the haunted room, and we didn't, but we did get the room right next to the haunted room. So 17 was the next door over, and it was vacant for both nights that we were there. So
That's right. So we investigated our room, which we did get a little bit of activity, and we did briefly look at the room next door. The room next door was vacant, so we poked around a little bit. Unless the Kennebunk Inn is listening, then we absolutely did not do that.
yeah, not us. We would never.
We would never do that.
If you want to watch like our full investigation of our particular room, it's in the YouTube member section, which there's been like 1,000 gifted subs tonight. So you probably have a subscription. If you don't, it's $1. So you can watch it in there. But Dave and I did go into room 17, as he mentioned, and I have a small clip. So the clip sort of sets it up, but you really have to listen after I ask the question. I hear it's a noise more than a response, and we should just play the clip and then we'll talk about it.
Just play the clip.
Just play the clip.
So we're here in room 17, which is the haunted room in the Kennebunk Inn. Now, to be completely honest, we didn't rent this room, but it is vacant, so don't tell anyone. One thing I will note about this room, going in here, this room is significantly colder than every other room that we've been in, which is...
Well, throughout the entire hotel and our room, this room is definitely much colder.
Now, you might say, well, it's vacant, but what I will say is the thermostats in this room and the room that we are staying in are set at the same temperature. So I don't know what that means, what that doesn't mean, but I will note that it is significantly colder here. So what we're going to do is, since we have limited time here, is we are going to do a voice recorder session. Did you ever trespass into a hotel room that you didn't pay for?
What was your favorite sport? What was your favorite sport?
That was an interesting noise.
It was definitely the sound of some kid getting checked into the hockey board.
I was going to say, it sounded kind of like creaking wood. So for audio listeners, I mean, this was a EVP of sorts, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to, it's almost like a small growl.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking, because as I was watching the clip and like trying to find any response from any of our questions, it caught my attention, and then I was like, oh, I thought it was like one of our stomachs or something at first. But if you look at our responses on our faces, neither of us pick up on this noise. If it was one of our stomachs, I swear one of us would have made fun of the other one for it.
100%.
Or looked over at each other or something and called it out. But it sounded, I see Julie thought the same thing, but I thought it was a cat purring as well, as Lockwood and Co says. I thought maybe it was like a ghostly cat or something within the room. We didn't hear it live, is what I can say. Neither of us react at all when the noise happens. Neither of us look around to hear it. So I thought it was potentially like a ghostly purr or something.
Yeah, my first reaction was it did sound like a stomach noise, but for audio listeners, the voice recorder was placed on the table in front of them. It could have picked up on a stomach noise, but if you guys didn't hear it or feel it at the time, then it might not have been that. But Jeremy mentions that it could have been Rob's stomach wanting soup.
Could have been,
Yeah.
Yeah, or hot dog ends. No, but we've been pretty good in the past about if we're doing a session like that and one of us accidentally makes a noise, we'd call it out.
Yeah. So
Right. Yeah. So you'll hear it if you go back to our investigations and check out like some of the archived footage of our uncut investigations. You have so much footage of me being like, oh, that was me. Oh, that was me. You know, like, oh, that was me stepping on something, or I bumped into that, you know. So we'll announce. It makes it so much easier to cut up the footage, figure out what's explainable and what isn't when you just mention like, oh, I accidentally bumped my knee into the dresser or something like that. So we've kind of make it a point to always announce if it's a noise that we made. So
yeah,
it was not hot dog ends. It was not, Rob was fine. He had actually been eating marshmallows all night. And to commemorate that, he put a giant marshmallow on his head for tonight. So it's for people wondering what Rob's wearing on top of his head, it is a giant marshmallow.
Yeah.
Chat brings up a good point. It could have been a ghost stomach making a growling noise.
Hungry ghosts.
Yep.
The ghost might have been upset that I didn't bring it back any Brussels sprouts with ketchup.
Mm-hmm. That happened.
Yep. That was that night. So
yep. That'll haunt me for the rest of my life.
It's actually not bad. It's actually pretty good.
Imagine the person who likes to put ketchup on absolutely everything is like, it actually isn't bad. Yeah. No shit.
So going through the recording, that was the only noise that we got on the voice recorder. But as we brought up at the beginning of the video, it was significantly colder in that room, like much, much colder in that room than the rest of the hotel. And we thought the same thing that anyone would think, like, okay, no, the room's vacant. The thermostat must be turned all the way down, but I think it was at like 68. I think it was set at 68 in there, which is what our room was set at. Our room might have even been set colder than that.
Did you guys check around for windows? See if there's a window open, maybe?
Yeah, there was no
Look,
windows
but it
open.
was, this is January in Maine. I think we would have known if there was a window open.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, it was the two things that stood out in that room more so than anything. And during the actual investigation, we got some responses, but this wasn't a full blown investigation. We only investigated for a little over an hour, I would say. So it wasn't one of our standard investigations. It was meant to be a smaller one. Also in a hotel, you're very limited on what you can do. We
True.
secured entry into the haunted room, and that was that.
Exactly. But this hotel does have has a lot of hauntings and a lot of history to it, right? It's built in the very last year of the 18th century. So it's got a ton of history. It passed through several different owners. It was renovated in the 1980s, and allegedly that stirred up a bunch of ghosts. But there are 2 main spirits here. Some would say 3. And it's the ghost of Silas Perkins, who was a real person. He was a poet. He worked as a night watchman there, and he ran the front desk. And then there's the ghost of little girl Emily that was identified by a psychic medium. And then there's a spirit of somebody named Cyrus. And now a lot of the Cyrus and Silas hauntings kind of cross over, like they get confused a lot. And we think that is because there isn't a Cyrus and a Silas. That's just the names got screwed up. And we're just talking about the spirit of Silas Perkins. Silas Perkins is somebody that you can verify historically, and Cyrus is not. So it could be 2 different people. There could have been a Cyrus, but I think we believe that it's just one person.
Yeah, I think it's most likely that if it's a medium getting a name coming through, or if you're getting a name coming through on a spirit box, that Cyrus could be misinterpreted and it's actually supposed to be Silas. So that's my feelings on it. I don't think they're separate entities.
I think the paths must have crossed at some point where it's already like both of those names are relatively uncommon.
Yeah.
For both of the for that to be 2 different ghosts. I think someone just got the name wrong somewhere down the line, and maybe there is something else haunting there. I'm sure there's more than one spirit. It's well known as one of the most haunted hotels in Maine. So I think you could possibly have other things there, but I think with the names, you're right. I think they're just too close to each other to not have gotten mixed up at some point, and then it just kind of stuck. So This happens. I mean, at every haunted location, if they haven't gotten any kind of clear evidence that says what the name of this ghost is, then a lot of times they just give it a name, right? So you have so many, and it's usually not a very scary name. It's actually a tactic, especially in poltergeist cases, where if something terrifying has happened, they'll just give them a stupid name like Fred, or not that, sorry, Freds that are listening, but they'll give them a name that they find to not be very scary. And
Don't apologize to Fred.
Fred didn't deserve that.
Bucky, for instance.
Terrible. Bucky McHat.
Yep.
The scariest of names.
Yes. Yeah, I had a thought there, and I completely lost it because we went into the name thing.
We did.
That's okay.
We did go into the name thing. It could have been about Cyrus versus Silas. There are other hauntings there that they can't tie to anyone in particular. There was a gentleman was enjoying a fine meal in the inn's restaurant when he happened to look out the window. Much to his surprise, he saw a see-through man from another era. The spirit man was wearing a double-breasted suit and was peering out from the second-story window before disappearing. So this doesn't fit the, obviously not the little girl Emily, and it didn't look like any pictures of Silas Perkins or anything like that. So could be a different ghost altogether.
I remember what I was going to say. So going back to Silas, they embrace Silas as like their ghost there. They don't shy away from it. And actually at one point they had a mannequin set up outside, and it was,
I saw that. It was pretty terrifying.
You know who he looked like? You know why it wasn't terrifying to me? Because all I could think when I saw the mannequin was he looked a lot like when Tim Robinson dressed up and went to the
I was
mall.
about to say the exact same thing. Yeah.
He's like he doing the prank show. And that's all I could think of when I saw this mannequin. I was like, that is it's the exact same mask. I think it killed me. So otherwise it would have been terrifying if I hadn't seen that show before. But because of seeing that, it really it lost its oomph is what I will say.
Yeah, for audio listeners, what I'm talking about, one of the outfits that Tim Robinson wore in an episode of I Think You Should Leave. And this was the outfit for those folks. Yeah, so just a very silly looking suit for sure.
It looked exactly like that. And they just put the Silas name tag on, and I was like, oh, that's the I Think You Should Leave guy. So
yeah. So great. Other hauntings, I mean, so the Cyrus thing apparently started when a waitress had seen a ghost down in the basement. And the haunting says that she saw a ghost named Cyrus in the cellars. So I don't know if this ghost had a name tag on or if he spoke to her and said, hey, I'm Cyrus, I'm Ghost. But she saw a ghost named Cyrus. That's the report. But it was in the basement. The basement is reported to be haunted. There's items that move around. They say they get boxes that tip over and your other typical hauntings, knocks, doors that open and close on their own, cold spots, which you guys may have experienced over there in the haunted room as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So very cool place. If you're in Kennebunk or Kennebunkport, I'd highly suggest going by and checking out the hotel, at least going into the little bar area and having a drink, because that's one of the more haunted places in the hotel as well. And just give it a little gander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the incident with what was it? One of the German-made mugs.
Yes.
So that being moved, or was it thrown against the back of the head of one of the bartenders, if I remember correctly?
That was so. There's all sorts of cups and glasses being thrown around at this restaurant. Apparently, that's like the haunting there. So there are the German mugs. That wasn't what hit the bartender. It was a different glass, and then like wine glasses are being lifted off trays and thrown on the ground and stuff like that. So whatever ghost haunts that restaurant just likes chucking glasses.
Yeah, very similar to one of the bars in New Orleans, the one that we went to at the Seance Room. The name is slipping my mind right now, but that one also had a ghost who threw a glass across from the bar, smashed against the wall right there. Muriel's, maybe?
Muriel's. That's it. Yeah. I was going to say Minerva's.
Close enough.
Minerva's a bad.
We'll call it that from now on.
Yes. Speaking of the German glasses, it didn't have really any hauntings associated, but we went over to Federal Jack's. Mm-hmm. And that's a really cool bar. So I think that's where Shipyard beer started.
Yeah. I know it started in Kennebunk. So if you ever had Shock Top. No, it's not Shipyard. It's isn't whoever makes Shock Top?
It could be both, but this bar boasted the first Shipyard brewery. Yeah. So maybe they started in Kennebunk and then they moved down to Boston, but they I think we Googled it to make sure in the restaurant because I wasn't going to let that slide. Yeah. You're not going to just claim this. It's a Massachusetts brewery, but I believe we did verify it.
But if you saw the picture of the opening story inside of Federal Jack's, there's a bunch of mugs hanging above the bar. You can actually pay like a certain fee and you get your own mug in the bar. And
yeah, I've seen that in a few places. Yeah.
You get it.
And just to confirm, yes, Shipyard did start in Kennebunkport.
Yeah, I know, because I said it. You don't have to verify everything I say.
I also said it.
Yeah, well, I said it first. So, anyways, a couple other places. I have a couple additional hauntings to talk about if you want to do that before we talk about the wedding cake house and the ship, if you guys would like. In Kennebunk, there's the Wallingford Hall, an event venue where doors are often seen opening and closing by themselves. Cold spots are felt in the hall. Footsteps running up and down the old staircase. And a little bit different is there's Revolutionary soldiers that are often seen walking along the rafters in the barn. Which is an intriguing
walking along the rafters in the barn is a crazy thing to see.
Yeah.
It's also dangerous.
Yeah.
You could die.
Tell those ghosts that's dangerous. Yeah, so I thought that one was a little bit different when we got to that part. That was a little bit of an eye turner. So it makes me wonder if there was like a skirmish and they were either hiding or fighting from the barn, maybe, which is
They're hiding from the barn?
hiding while in the barn.
Oh, I was gonna say. The
Not
hell's
hiding
wrong
in
with
the
that
barn.
barn?
They'd be doing a terrible job. It already ate them. They've already lost. There's some Kennebunkport additional hauntings as well. The one I really wanted to go to, it's a private residence though, so you can't go there. But if you get a chance, I'm just going to hit some brief points on it. Is the Jane Morgan house, which is also known as Blueberry Hill Farm. So for those of you who don't know who Jane Morgan is Jane Morgan is a singer. Technically, she's still a singer, and on May 3rd she's going to be 101 years old.
Did that audio just come through for you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
are you watching Russian World War I propaganda while we're
I pulled up a video of the bar that we were talking about that says the birthplace of Shipyard, and the audio played on my screen, but there's no reason it should have came through on this, right?
Haunted.
it happens from time to time.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Dave. So the Jane Morgan house, she's almost 101 years old. She's a singer. It's also called Blueberry Hill Farm. Neighbors report seeing lights turning off and on when no one is home. And here's the creepy one. During the winter, footprints appear in the snow all around the house with no explanation on how they got there.
I've been waiting for another one of those since Houghton Mansion.
Yeah. So there's the other one. So that's pretty terrifying. And one of my favorite ghost stories, it just wasn't long enough to really put into the main part of the episode, is the Captain Lord Mansion. So Captain Nathaniel Lord, he built this mansion during like the War of 1812. They were stuck in port. He couldn't go out on his ship. So to keep his crew occupied and paid, he had them build this mansion for his wife. His wife's name was BB. 3 years after completion of the house, he passed away, but she would live into her 90s and raise all 9 of their children there. And it's believed that she is still in the house when she appears. It's in a long flowing nightgown. And here's the crazy part about this haunting.
The fact that she raised 9 kids into her 90s. Like, is that how long it takes to raise 9 kids?
Probably. Have you ever had 9 kids?
No.
All right. Well, then you can't speak on it.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah. So here's what I found to be the creepiest part of this haunting. It's very different. So if you encounter her in the house, a lot of times you encounter her as a young woman, and then she like starts to back away. And as she's backing away, she fades into the wall. And as she's fading into the wall, she turns into an old woman as she disappears. So
That is creepy. I like
very creepy.
Yeah, it's also supposed to be haunted by Captain Nathaniel Lord himself. And he haunts the Lincoln bedroom. So forgive me for forgetting to name one of my bedrooms the Lincoln bedroom in my house. I think we all do that now, right?
Yeah, we
Lincoln
all
bedroom.
we all have Lincoln bedroom. She's also seen on the cupola because she liked to look out over the street from up there, and people see her watching from up there as well. So
very creepy.
It's a very cool house.
Every time I look at a cupola, I always think I'm just going to see like a creepy woman standing in it looking out, but I haven't seen that yet.
Or a man with a monocle smoking a pipe, just staring out.
Just fishbowling that tiny little cupola.
Yeah, you just have to do it. And then there's like 80 more inns and captain's mansions that are reportedly haunted with limited information. But as you're driving from Kennebunk to Kennebunkport, there's like this road that we drove down. I can't remember the exact name of the road, but it's the road that the wedding cake house is on. And it's just a road of houses that sea captains built back in the day.
Summer Street?
It might be. And it's just all these crazy, cool ass big houses. As you're driving down, you're like, oh man, this place is awesome and very haunted.
Yeah, the house right next to the wedding cake house is also supposed to be haunted.
Yes.
With that, it was actually so haunted that they brought in, I think it was like 9 priests to do an exorcism, which sounds like more than you would normally bring in for an exorcism. I had one on the exorcism in my house. Bloomy in Chicago donating $5 in super chat says the wedding cake the wedding cake house sold for $2.65 million in 2024, and that is correct. I learned that while researching the house. Saw it was up for sale. Anytime you see that one of these haunted houses up for sale, you're like, maybe, and then you see it's 2.65 million and realize that we got to do another roughly 600,000 episodes to collect enough donations and add money to make that happen. So, we'll get there eventually.
I figure out if that's a good or a bad deal for that house, because it is a pretty big house, borderline mansion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all location, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a summer resort town that everyone wants to go to. So,
right.
But
even if you pick that house up and transplanted it in like Hingham, Massachusetts, I think that's still probably close to what it would go for.
Probably more money in Hingham because it's Hingham.
That's true.
2.65 million is a lot.
Anywhere in Ohio, it's like 200 grand though.
That's true. That's actually true. Real estate is crazy cheap. I remember I was out there visiting some in-laws, and they're like, "Oh, the house across the street's not haunted. Sorry, could have been haunted. Sorry. I guess we're on a ghost show here." But like, "Oh, the house across the street's for sale," and it looked like something out of Scarface, like a house that you would buy in GTA.
Yeah,
it looked like one of those. It completely didn't fit in Ohio, and I'm like, just how much is it? And it was like 320 grand. And I'm telling you, this thing in Massachusetts would have been 9 million. Like it was insane. But you could have an awesome house, but then you're in Ohio.
Unfortunately, we're going to be in Ohio in about a month. So
I'm looking forward to it. Finally get to investigate a jail. It's going to be fun.
Well, that is going to be fun.
This was your idea, you idiot. Anyways.
There was a jail. I couldn't pass it up. I was like, we could finally do a jail.
There are other ways to go to jail, Rob.
Yeah.
Before we hop into talking about the birthday cake house, Youngstown Pizza comes in with $4.99 in super chat. Says $2.50 for Jesse, $2.50 for Dave, and $0 for Rob.
Thank you. They can't even add in Ohio. That's $5, not $4.99.
I was going to say, I think, Jesse and I are going to be fighting over a penny.
No, you're at -1 penny, and you have to pay that penny back to Youngstown Pizza. But thank you for that donation. It was absolutely amazing. So this house, it looks really cool, like the woodwork on it, and the name of it's wild, the wedding cake house. But it got its name and apparently its legend as well, I believe, from a guy who was designing a postcard or something like that. And I think he just kind of came up with this legend about the house, which is rooted around real people, but it wasn't necessarily a true story. Now, could it be true? I don't know if it's been like debunked that it's completely false, but it's fun. And regardless if the legend is true one way or the other, the house still has haunted activity or paranormal activity. So who is haunting the house? You're never really positive who is haunting a house, but it could have been, it could have something to do with the original guy who constructed it, George. I remember it was George Washington. I'm forgetting his last name just because it's George Washington.
just I think it starts with a B, if I remember correctly.
Born, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this one, I mean, they have shadow figures. They've spotted an older looking woman looking out the window. They say that she looks like she's waiting for something, which I don't know how you determine. I mean, it looks like everyone's waiting for something when they're looking out the window, right? But they say that they feel like something's lingering in the air. There's also been things that have moved around inside the house and different kind of hauntings like that. So there are hauntings here. This is another one that's privately owned. Obviously, we just talked about how it was sold in 2024, I believe. And so you don't go strolling up there, but people take pictures from the street and stuff. But anytime it's a private residence, you want to leave them alone. But yeah, sold in 2004, 2.65 million according to Bloomy in Chicago. But probably haunted. We just don't know the original reason that it's haunted, right?
Well, there are reports from people that own the house that, although they don't believe in the legend, they do believe that George is haunting the house. And a lot of the reports for the hauntings for George came from 2 or 3 owners ago at this point, where they would go into the barn or the barn, and as they walk into the barn, things would start flying around. And they weren't the only ones to witness this. As they put the house up for sale, they brought the realtor in, and the realtor was
Started
there.
flying around.
The realtor started flying around. Yes.
It's amazing.
No, but the realtor also saw the object start to move around as well. And allegedly, this owner got so fed up that she yelled, "George, I'm getting tired of this. You need to stop this." And it stopped for her for the rest of the time that she owned the house. And we don't know if the new owners have had that problem or not, but it is a couple of owners previous that multiple owners had experienced similar things.
Yeah, so you get some poltergeist-like activity there. The timing of that one is very interesting because if you have the realtor there, maybe that ghost didn't want the place to get sold, something along those lines.
Yeah.
It's always something like that, right? Right around time to sell. Things like that happen. You had it in the other case, they had, right after renovations, we see that all the time. So there are definitely similarities between the hauntings that are taking place here and the timing of them that line up with other places. Now, while some people will say that, oh, they're just copying their ghost stories from other places, no, I don't think so. I think you look for consistency in these things to try to prove that ghosts are real or that hauntings are real. And when you see things like this during renovations, during a change of ownership, that it very well could be, the consistency might be there because that's consistently why ghosts haunt and why they reveal themselves at certain times.
Yeah. So very cool house. And as Jesse said, you can drive up, you can kind of take some video from the street. It's fenced off, so it's not hard to do. It's the most I think you said it even in the episode, it's the most photographed house in all of Maine. So it's expected that you're going to take pictures. So that, I mean, you can't spend $2.65 million in this house and be like, no one can take pictures of this house anymore.
Right.
So
It's not even like in an isolated area. It's right on a main road.
right. So it's one that you can do that for. And I think that brings us to our final story, which is the tale of the Isidor, which no one knows how to spell apparently, because if you look it up, it's either spelled Isidor, which I think is the correct spelling, or you'll find it Isador quite a bit as well. And
sometimes for fun, they slap an E on the end of it.
yeah, sometimes they throw the E on the, all kinds of fun stuff going on with this name. But it's a chilling story. And this is actually the story when we were trying to find some place to go in Maine. We were going to go to Portland at first, which I think we will still do in the future. But this tale is the one that swayed me that we need to cover Kennebunk and Kennebunkport, because
says all houses in Maine are on a main road.
it's
the best point that's been brought up today.
touche. But I found this to be one of the more intriguing ghost stories. It's kind of a ghost story because the ghost ship still is supposed to linger on the coast, but it's more of a curse than a ghost story. And it sort of starts with the captain who had this boat in 1838, and his maiden voyage is started off with a mutiny. He has to turn around, come back to Kennebunkport. He has to, he thwarts the mutiny, the 4 people that tried to take over the ship, corrals them, brings them back. They go to court. Do you want to know how long they got sentenced for?
For a mutiny?
Yeah.
It's got to be life, right? I mean, they take that shit seriously.
Jesse, any guesses?
A week and a half.
60 days.
Okay. Like
I was closer.
You were.
Yeah. I thought just because Rob brought it up that it was going to be ridiculous. And I thought ridiculous would be not enough time for this. Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't just hang him.
Yeah. Or throw
60 days does not seem long enough for a mutiny back in that time, but
don't you walk the plank if you're a mutineer?
If you're a pirate ship. I mean, it depends on when you do it.
Okay, fair.
But I think
On a fishing boat.
I think when you got to come back and explain where the bodies went, you're better off bringing them back alive and being like, yeah, they started a mutiny. Here's all the witnesses. Not there's nobody left on my boat. I swear to God, it was a mutiny, not a mass murder. So kind of a better case.
Touche.
So as he's back in town with the boat, it has a massive gale force storm hit, and it sends the boat crashing. It's the Horus is the name of the boat, crashing into the rocks and stuff, and it ends up grounding the ship, declared a total loss. This is his first time on the ship, right? First time on the ship, and he crashes. So now all the people that work around there think that the captain is cursed. He wishes he went down with the ship, but 4 years later, he gets to captain the Isidor. And the Isidor isn't just a normal ship. It's also built out of the rigging that was left over from the Horus. So part of the boat that he had is part of this boat. And
seems like a curse right off the bat.
So you have a cursed captain, a cursed boat. You have part of the boat on the new boat. And now your crew starts to have dreams about the ship crashing. And the first dream is especially terrifying, where Mr. King, who was the ship's carpenter, dreams of them crashing, having crashing waves come over, everyone dying on the boat, 7 bodies washing on shore, including his, and there being 7 coffins.
Yeah, it's wild. And so you could imagine that people at sea, they're thinking about it all the time, and they could commonly have nightmares about this. But there was 2 different ones, I think, in the same night that had almost the same nightmare, right?
Yeah. So then the other shipmate, he had it a few days later, after King had already had his vision of the future with the coffins. Another crewmate had the same dream of 7 coffins. Now, the first guy, when he went to the captain, was like, we can't go anywhere. Like, this is insane. Like, I've never had a dream like this. This is a bad omen. The captain was like, dude, we are going on this ship and you will be here because we've already paid your wages in advance. So if you are,
I might try that too after I've been paid. Like, hey, had a bad dream. So should we stay home?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Final Destination movies? I'm not getting on this boat.
Yeah. My favorite one is like these 2 guys have these dreams, right? And then the third guy goes, yeah, and a dog was barking outside my house for 3 days. It's like, that's what dogs do, bro. It's like, no, it's a bad it's like, no, that's not worse than the other 2 guys. You can't come in with that. You can't come in with the dog barking outside.
And I had a dream that my teeth fell out.
Yeah. I had a dream that we ran out of bread on the first day.
I had a dream that I missed class.
Yeah. So
you guys ever have that dream?
Rink was blaring music for 3 days. It's a bad omen. I'm not getting on this boat.
You guys ever have that stupid dream where like you're back in school and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to go to math class all year.
Oh, I
have that dream all the time. Dream experts, tell me what that means.
Yeah, I have had that dream.
You have? All right.
That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what the breakdown of that is. Please don't look into it. Or please don't announce it in chat if it's something stupid.
So those are the 3 like visions that I had. The first guy hid the day that they were supposed to leave.
Stop it, Dave. I know what you're doing.
But he was just like, I am not showing up to this ship. So he hid in town, even though he was threatened that he would be arrested and everything. And there was another guy on the deck that was like, I don't want to get on the ship. I wish it was 1,000 miles out in sea and I was here. But alas, he gets on. They get a few miles out. They perish immediately, basically, like within hours, over by the Nubble Light, which is Cape Nedick, which we drove over to, Dave. We went over to that. It was like, what, a 40-minute drive from something like that. It wasn't too far.
It'd be 30 for me, 40 for you.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I might have taken one wrong turn.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I thought that was a V6 joke.
No, that could have been it.
I was reading a thing today that said that every single lighthouse, there are so many of them, and almost every single one has a ghost story attached to it. So you very well may have visited a haunted lighthouse there.
No, we definitely did. There's more stories attached to that lighthouse. There's more stories attached as you bring up to a ton of the main lighthouses, which we'll get into in the future. There's one in particular that I found very cool to talk about later, but that's where it went down.
Which
and
one did you go
since- to? The Nubble Lighthouse.
Okay, so that's not even on the
Cape
list that I
Netted.
just pulled up. But Wood Island Lighthouse, Owl's Head Lighthouse, Sagan Lighthouse, and Matt, I can't pronounce it, Lighthouse.
Nice.
But that's at least 4 lighthouses in the Kennebunk area that are all supposed to be haunted.
I wonder if they're just like hotels where every hotel is haunted, every college is haunted, every lighthouse is haunted.
Yeah, I would wager that most of the lighthouses are, just because of the work that they had to do there. Before the Kennebunk people come after me, I think that list is just haunted lighthouses in Maine. So I don't know if those are right around your area or not, but close enough.
They will come for you. They will come for you.
They're definitely on the east coast of Maine.
Every theater is haunted too, except for the one you went to, Dave, which I think was in Maine.
No, it wasn't Maine. It was in Rangeley.
Yeah.
I was so annoyed when I went in because I was so sure. I was like, this is going to be the perfect location. Creepy old rundown movie theater that's still active. And they're just like, no, there's nothing here.
There's like, nope, there's no soul the whole time. They're like, nope, ain't nothing there. Sorry.
Yeah. Dana brings up a great idea of just doing a series on haunted lighthouses, which is something we could absolutely do. Maybe that's what we'll do next time we cover Maine. Perhaps.
Dreaming that you forgot to attend a class for an entire year usually signifies feelings of being unprepared, overwhelmed, or having lack of control in a significant area of your
That
life.
is absolutely be panicking about being ready for a show on Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's my episode. 1000% debunked. Good.
So in closing on the ship, a ghost ship that patrols the border of southern Maine has been seen since the Isidor went down. However, there are a lot of shipwrecks, and there's a lot of ships that could be associated with the ghost ship that is patrolling southern Maine. So we're not 100% sure it's the Isidor, but it was the biggest naval tragedy at the time in the state of Maine.
Why is there a Navy ship patrolling the border of southern Maine, like protecting them from New Hampshire? Like, what is?
Yes,
What is
yes. As you know how New Hampshire is.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the ship is supposedly that one or one of another 100, and some people still report this as the biggest tragedy at sea from Maine. But I found another shipwreck that was over 42 people perished, and
There was 42 shitty people, which would make it slightly less tragic.
it was on purpose.
Yeah.
And the Isidor was either 15 or 16 people. I mostly see 15 people reported, but occasionally I have seen 16 that perished, including a 15-year-old who was on his first assignment for work. So
That is tragic.
Terrible stuff. But that is Kennebunk and Kennebunkport, Maine.
It's always
Very
tough.
cool
Whenever there's a young kid that passes away on these things. I remember I took my kids to the museum. It's in Cape Cod for Sam Bellamy's ship. What was that one called?
The
Witta.
W. Yeah.
The Witta or something like that. Anyways, so cool. Pirate ship museum. Sammy, my youngest, was super into pirates at the time. We're going to the museum. We're seeing all the stuff, the treasure, the cannons. And then there's just a child's leg bone mounted to the wall. And they're like, this is the bone of the 9-year-old who was on boat and died. We're like,
Great.
my kids are like, is that real? I'm like, unfortunately, yes. And I have no way of telling you it's not.
You could have just said, no, it's not real.
I'm not gonna lie to him. And Frankie can read, so he had already read it. He was just confirming. So yeah. But they estimate that there's 1,000 shipwrecks off the coast of Maine.
Yeah.
Which doesn't surprise me. And I bet you there's more off of Cape Cod. But
I'd rather crash my boat than go to Maine as well.
I love Maine.
No, I'm kidding. I actually like Maine a lot.
Yeah. It's one of the rare states that we actually like that we cover. We don't even like Massachusetts. We live in Massachusetts. People think we just trash on other people's states. Like, we haven't covered Boston because that's how much we hate it. So don't think that we're just like stuck up or anything. We just hate everything. So anyways, Maine's a good time.
If you're from outside of Massachusetts, Massachusetts is the best state of all time. We are number one in the world of states of every country. If you're from Massachusetts, this is the worst. It's
I was
just
about to
the
say,
absolute
like,
worst.
I can't even join in on this joke with you. I hate it so much here.
No,
but-
we will defend it to the end to outsiders, but
yeah, I'll defend the sports teams, and that's about it.
yes,
At least 2 of them.
yes,
Anyways,
3 of them. No, 3 of them. We'll defend 3 of them.
I'll defend all of them. Why not?
Sure.
Big revolution guy over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never seen a game, can't name a player.
I was trying to remember the
Name of the soccer team?
no, I was trying to remember the name of the. We have like a really good like team that plays one of those weird sports that wins every year that no one cares about, and I forget what it is.
Confirmation that nobody cares.
See,
One of
point
the weird
proven.
sports.
What?
Lacrosse?
Lacrosse? Yes. I think that I can't remember what they are though. It happens.
Anyways,
We can move on.
Sport. All right, moving on. Okay, that's it for Maine for now. We will be back for more of Maine. Maybe we'll cover the haunted lighthouses of Maine, or perhaps we'll go over all 1,000 shipwrecks. Try to track down which boat has been spotted off the coast of Kennebunk.
We also have to go to Portland, Maine at some point.
I love Portland, Maine. That's a good time.
we could
too.
build our own submarine and go investigate every shipwreck.
I like that idea. That's fun. Rob loves the ocean.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds like what I really want to do is go into a submarine that we made.
That nothing has ever gone wrong with people doing that before.
Not one thing. I have a controller right here, so at least we got one part of it.
We have one part of the submarines already locked away. Perfect.
Before we get into the names, we're gonna do after the credits roll. We're gonna stay live and we're gonna do an unboxing. So if you're watching live, stay around for that.
We got a mystery gift sent to our PO box and we haven't opened it yet. So
Yeah.
hopefully it isn't ticking.
Yeah.
Have a small peek before you put it on camera, just in case. But
Nah.
all right,
Yeah,
we'll
we
unbox
risk it.
live on camera, and maybe not. Our
This
channel.
is the only time we're doing this, though.
Yeah.
We're not doing mystery unboxings ever again after this. I don't trust you people.
Any reviews, or you want me to hop right into Patreon?
Just operated the Patreon.
All
today.
right, let's start with our VIPs. Let's start with our RIP of the week, which was who?
Jennifer Anderson.
Oh, Jennifer A. Nice. All right, our VIPs, we have Ryan F, Justin W, Jay Gooch 725, Jennifer Anderson. Our RIP of the week. Look at that. Jeremy M, KCW, Brendina 77. I like how I acted surprised, as if she wasn't going to be right there on the VIP list when
There
we
she
said
is.
That's how you do it. Yep.
Found her.
Kathy F, Kitten Clown Dozer, Ghost Nurse, JP, Another Vice. Dave has a new kangaroo onesie with a bottom flap. West Virginia coal miner. Tess, Ghost Children chained to the radiator. That wasn't meant to be repeated. Kate and Steve M, Sharon V, Glitter Tees, Cammy from Washington, Kelly C, Nick, Liz Young, Donnie N, Inspires Gaming, Allison V, Robert H, Anna C, Jeannie, Mom and Pops W, Father Squatch the Elder, Lisa J, and more disappointing than Plymouth Rock. That reminds me that we actually didn't have the updated Patreon list for last week because it was pre-recorded. So I think we're going to get a little bit of, might have some Lizzie Borden jokes sprinkled in here.
Let's do it.
Maybe.
Okay, we have my mom's mom, my mom's my mom, my dad's a horse. The two of them had intercourse. I'm traumatized by their divorce. I'm half man, half horse. If you guys haven't watched the half horse, half man video yet, highly recommend. Had I recognized the lyrics before the very last sentence there, I would have nailed it. Anyways, degenerate, gambler, voodoo ghost who shouldn't have hit on 19. Jamie E, Nick M, T-Cat, Whisper. Jeremy M, Jeremy M, Beth C, Rachel G, Sarah B, Her Lady Spook Ship, Victim of Ohio, Morgan S, Eugene M. Remember when Rob used to always make death threats to Dave? Colby remembers. And now you just reminded him to continue that awful string of jokes. Shame on you. Kath Q, Chris Connolly, LBPS founder, Next, HTGS guest, the other Rachel B, Sarah Cook, Zeta Chimera, Janice G, Mar Fire, Lily, Anthony. Hey, do y'all reckon Each of Dave's alter egos will split and haunt different locations or just congregate to torture Rob. Rob's breakfast catch-up on the murder axe. Go ahead.
I do like that the thought process there is Dave is definitely going to die before me.
Yeah.
So
Still,
that's all that matters.
Still really counting on that. Sydney, I swear I'm still HTGS #1 fan B. And I believe you, Sydney. I believe you. We're glad to have you. Let them eat cake or die trying. Steph A. and Seth on guitar. Thank you so much for being part of the Warren's Wards. And next up, we'll hop into the Ghost Pirate Mafia, starting with Cole to the Miscellany. I think I did better that time. G.O.B. We have Cora H. Grimby D. The Lobster Dancing Banana Land Dinosaur Monster. Susan C. Just Ghoulie. Witchy Kitty 416. Deb 62. Karen L. Michael M. Amber R. Brant C. Mrs. Nardozzi. Shane O'Mac. Joe. Trevor S. Christina S. Kate C. Bloop. Bloop. Also have Kelly C. Crazy Legs. Cowboys are the worst franchise ever. Miss Macabre. Michelle. Nuroku Cold Warrior. Rob turning heel and teaming up with Youngstown Pizza to take over the pizza world. I like where that goes.
That's not
D from H-Town. Meta A. Monster Mom 04. Wicked Alley. Dark Snark. Telling your suitcase there is no vacation this year can be tough because emotional baggage is the worst.
That's true.
That's pretty good. I like
Going
that.
back to Bloop, do you think that's the noise that the axe made in the Lizzie Borden house when it hit?
Can't rule it out. Megan S. Arcade Hunters. Wayne C. Rob drinks hot dog water with ketchup.
Nice.
Crystal Quinn, a.k.a. Not a Rob fan. Thick Boy Freddy's baby mama was definitely yeeted. Alicia E. Thick Boy Freddy is fully convinced the real killer of Lizzie's parents was H.H. Holmes, and ketchup goes on breakfast, you animals. Whoa.
Yeah.
A lot to unpack there. Beware the binocular man. Sam from the Paul. Joe R. Al Capone. Huggy Bear. Coming soon, the Ryman Auditorium presented by Dave. Solar Flare. Mariah M. Kiralee J. Rachel B. Cody G. Hooply Whooply. Bridge Witch. And Lieutenant Hitchcock Butt Chapel. I don't know what that is, but I like it. I like it a lot. Anyways, thank you so much for being members on Patreon. Quick shout out to everyone who gifted today. This was a big stream. We thank you so much for your generosity. You guys, people who donate, you make the show possible, members of Patreon, and people who leave reviews for us. It just all makes the show keep on rolling, you know? So Brenda C., once again, thank you. Jeannie gifted, Blow Me in Chicago gifted, Lockwood and Company, Elizabeth Young, Blow Me in Chicago again, Youngstown Pizza, and Demon King with the big boy donation today. This was massive. So thank you so much for all of your generosity, folks. Anything else we want to touch on before we get out of here?
Yeah. Make sure you're subscribed to our review and gaming channel, HTGS Reviews. We started our playthrough of Until Dawn last Friday. So we're going to be doing part 2 of that really soon. And sometimes the jokes get sprinkled into the Patreon name. So if you want to keep up to date with all the Patreon name jokes, you have to go and watch the video game reviews or playthroughs so that you know every bit of Hometown Ghost Stories lore.
Love it. Stay tuned this Friday for a horror movie review. We reviewed the movie.
I can't remember.
Arcadia.
Yeah. You're muted, Dave. God damn it.
It was, yeah, well, that's about how forgettable it was.
You can't spoil it, Jesse. They have to go and wondering what we think of this terrible movie.
Well, it'd be fun because we didn't really agree on it. So
that's true.
That's true. You have terrible taste.
Some would say.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time. Goodbye. Let's just run that back, start all over again. Mm-hmm. What's up, folks, and welcome into Hometown Ghost. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Terrible idea.
It was so much fun, though.
It was.
It was very exciting.
It's time for the
It's supposed to be
First
one of
ever.
our laid back episodes, and we did a big boy for it.
I know, right? It was your idea. Anyways,
This is the time for the first ever HTGS unboxing. Well, that's kind of a bag. The first ever HTGS unbagging. We're going to do it live here on camera. I hope everyone's excited.
I'm nervous.
Maybe we just give the room to Dave here.
Yeah, but can they hear us?
this must sound horrible.
It does.
It's not a bomb. It didn't explode.
Damn.
It's a good start. It is.
Elves? Is it cookies?
It's kids' binoculars.
Ah,
You guys have no idea what that reference is. That is a reference to one of our gaming streams last week, and it was hilarious. It's hilarious that people send us references to these. Oh, there's more.
oh, there's more?
Could still be a bomb.
It's not. There's a clue to who sent it. It's tiny little Sasquatches.
Oh, who could it be?
I wonder who sent it.
So this could be one for each of us. There's 4 though, Mr. Squash. There are 4. I guess maybe one for Andrew.
He said an extra in case someone loses one.
Oh, that's a good plan.
I got to tell you, to unbox, you actually have to open a box here. Your work here isn't done.
Yeah, we need to see these. And yeah, as Dave said,
I can't wait for these to look full size on Dave.
Fuck out of here.
Huge binoculars.
huge binoculars. We had a binocular guy that was the worst character in video games, and we made fun of him ruthlessly the entire stream. So
These are fancy. They even come with like a neat little
oh,
case.
look at that. Oh, green ones? Sick. What colors do we have?
Hang on.
Oh my god, they're too big for you.
Can you get them smaller, Papa Squatch?
We need the infant ones.
All right, we got green.
All right.
But different colored boxes suggest that they might be different
Colors?
different colors.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. You could just tell us the color of the box because I'm going to assume that they're
Yeah, that's less exciting.
okay.
Oh, see,
Oh,
the yellow box has pink ones.
all right.
So you're wrong all along. They look salmon on
They
stream.
look salmon.
I guess you could say they're salmon, pinkish.
Mm.
No, I think they're definitely pink.
Can you adjust the rope so it's the size of your head and put all of them on at the same time, please?
Oh, please do.
No, I'm kidding. I'll take all day.
That which one?
We'll post a picture of all 4 so everyone can see what colors we got and everything in Discord. Thank you so much. I'm assuming to Papa Squatch, who
Yes.
I think made it quite obvious that that's who sent it out. So yeah, that's the first ever unboxing here on Hometown Ghost Stories.
And last, because we don't trust you all. We assume that anything further is going to be terrifying.
Could be. Could be. We have had
Indeed.
mystery dolls show up. Rubber feet.
I think it'll be fun to hide these little Sasquatches around and then have to find them with the binoculars.
That sounds like something you're absolutely going to do all by yourself.
It's definitely what a 4-year-old would do.
What is Dave?
Dave just neglecting his family while he's snooping around his office with his binoculars.
There's one more. I can't find it.
We'll
I
talk
don't know where it went. I was hammered when I replaced them.
I have to get drunk again to find it.
This is how the cycle begins. That's what we usually do. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.